morning, and welcome to Grace Evangelical Church, or afternoon or evening, whenever you're watching this. My name is Renee Chinn. I'm married to the lead pastor, Tim Chinn, for actually 38 years this week. We would like to make sure that you are all receiving the communications for the church, his daily devotions, and the sermons. If not, please go to www.gecelgin.org. The title for the sermon today is Making Course Correction. We're in a series called The Path. Tim has provided an introduction video to honor veterans and first responders. Thank you to all of you who submitted pictures. Thank you especially to all of you who serve. As a mother of a soldier and the daughter of a sailor, I thank you. After we worship together, please pray with those around you, look at the sermon notes, and you will have things that you and your family can pray about. Thank you again, and welcome.
shadow where I hide, the ransom for my life. Oh, he is my song. You are good, good. Oh, 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 let the King of my heart be the wind inside my sails, the anchor in the waves. Oh, he is my song. Let the King of my heart be the fire inside my veins, the echo of my days. Oh, he is my song. You are good, good. Oh, 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 you're never gonna let me down. 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 You are good, good. Oh, you are good, good. Oh, you are good, good. Oh, you are good, good. Oh.
Well, thank you for joining me for today's digital service. We started a new sermon series called The Path. And in last week's message, we learned that there is an irrefutable principle that if you try to break it, it will eventually break you. It's called the principle of the path, or at least I called it that, which says your direction determines your destination. I hope you remembered it. I even went a little bit further last week and I said, it really doesn't matter what you hope will happen or what you want to happen. Your direction, not your intention, determines your destination. It doesn't matter how smart you are, how good looking you are, how rich your daddy was or is. And if it comes down to this, if we get on Interstate 90 and head west, we'll eventually end up in Seattle, no matter how bad we want to end up in Miami. This principle isn't rocket science. It isn't brain surgery. And you don't need to be a genius to understand it. We all know this principle is true when it comes to geography. But for some reason, unbeknownst, when it comes to other areas of our life, like relationships and finances, morality, learning habits, exercise, and especially spiritual growth, things that make us more competent and more respected, we often think we can walk one way and end up in some place totally different. Your direction, not your intention, not your hopes, not your dreams, your direction determines your destination. This is the hinge on which everything that we're going to learn today is going to swing. I'm going to build on this principle in a few minutes. But before I go there, I want to show you some things about the Bible, specifically about the book of Proverbs, so that we can learn to navigate it on our own a little bit better. Well, please open your Bibles and turn to the table of contents. The Old Testament is actually divided into 4 main sections. The first 5 books of the Bible, Genesis through Deuteronomy, is called the Pentateuch because they are the law or the books of Moses. Then we have the history books, Joshua through Esther. Those books tell of God's people, the history of God's people, and how God prepared them for the coming Messiah, which is his son, Jesus Christ. The next 5 books are the poetic books. They teach us the wisdom of Israel. If you look, you got Job, Psalms, Proverbs, Ecclesiastes, Song of Solomon. Each of those books deal with some kind of poetry or wisdom when it comes to how we can either relate to heaven or how we can relate better here on earth. And that is what Proverbs does. Proverbs teaches us how to walk on this earth with people in a better way. So Ecclesiastes is a treaty that Solomon gave, and then the Song of Solomon is a romantic love story. Well, the final 17 books of the Bible are called the prophetic books. They're made up of the major and minor prophets. We're not going to be dealing with those in this series. So with that, please turn to Proverbs chapter 1, verses 2 through 4. Here's the purpose for what the book of Proverbs is all about. It says this: to know wisdom and instruction, to understand words of insight, to receive instruction in wise dealing, in righteousness, justice, and equity, to give prudence to the simple, knowledge and discretion to the youth. What and who doesn't want that for their life? God superintended the contents of this book that we call Proverbs so that we could become wise, so that we could learn from him and his wisdom, so that we would learn how to live this life on earth very well. In these verses, which is known as the prologue to the book of Proverbs, there is a word that appears twice in the NIV that we don't use very often. But it's a great word because if we can understand and master the skill that it implies, your life and my life will work out much better. See if you can find out what that word is that appears twice, though in slightly different forms. Look what it says. To attain wisdom and discipline, for understanding words of insight, for acquiring discipline and prudent life, doing what is right and just and fair, for giving prudence to the simple, knowledge and discretion to the young. Who would not want that for their life? Were you able to pick out those 2 words, even though they were slightly different forms? Well, obviously, it's prudent. Prudent, or in the adjective form, prudence. To be prudent means to know what to do, to exercise good judgment. And here's my favorite definition: having common sense. I think we all want to be known as having common sense. We don't use the word prudence very much today, but the book of Proverbs uses it a lot. In fact, Solomon compares and contrasts prudent people with the second kind of people in this verse that he calls simple people. So whatever you are, none of us want to be known as a simple person, at least by Solomon's definition. Later in Proverbs, Solomon wrote these words: strike a scoffer, and the simple will learn prudence. Reprove a man of understanding, and he will gain knowledge. Proverbs 19:25. In other words, some people can learn by simple verbal instruction. A friend may point out something that you're not doing wrong, or something that you could do better, something that you could learn, and you learn from it. Other people, that is, the simple people, they have to be whipped or maybe even beaten to learn a lesson. None of us want to be like that. In another place in Proverbs, Solomon wrote these words: the vexation of a fool is known at once, but the prudent ignores an insult. Proverbs 12:16. In other words, simple people, they let their emotions get the best of them. They just fly off the handle at any second. They get mad and they go into a rage and they spout off and complain when things don't go their way. But the prudent person knows how to control himself or herself, and they take things in stride. They say, we'll deal with that as it comes. Here's another one of those verses that Solomon uses. The simple believes everything, but the prudent gives thought to his steps. Proverbs 14:15. In other words, simple people, they get fooled easily. However, prudent people, they use their brains. They think. They discern. Can you imagine what our lives would be like if we were able to master this concept of prudence? I think it'd be quite different. Okay, one more verse. The prudent sees danger and hides himself, but the simple goes on and suffers for it. Proverbs 22:3. That one is almost worth repeating. No, it is worth repeating. Now look at it this way. The prudent sees danger and hides himself, but the simple goes on and suffers for it. Proverbs 27:12. Wait a minute, Tim. Did you notice that those two verses are exactly the same? They're the same proverb, just recorded in two different places. Why would Solomon use this proverb and record it twice? Why do any of us repeat ourselves? Parents, why do you repeat yourself? It's because what we're saying is important, right? We want our children, we want other people to learn. And that's why God gave us this verse twice. He wanted us to master this concept, and he gave it to us twice. So that's why it must be doubly important for us to learn this principle. Simple people may need to be flogged in order to learn their lessons, while the prudent people just need to be told sometimes just once. So let me give you some words today about prudence. They are this. The prudent sees danger and they hide themselves or hides himself. But the simple go on and they suffer for it. Proverbs 27:12. All right, here's where the serious learning begins. If last week we learned that the path is of utmost importance, then the logical question is this. How do you and I choose the right path? How do we figure out what path we should be on, that I should be on? Or in some cases, how do we figure out what path we need to get off of? This proverb is telling us that principle. The primary difference between the prudent person and the simple is not what they see, but it's how they respond to what they see. The prudent person sees danger, and then they take refuge. But the simple person sees danger, and they just keep right on going. Both of them see the same danger. One responds by changing their course. The other one keeps on going and hopes that the danger will never arrive. It's like the ostrich that buries its head in the sand and thinks, well, if I can't see the danger, then it can't see me. Or if I ignore what I know is out there, then it can't hurt me. We know that's foolish. You can see why Solomon calls people like this simple. So how do you and I choose the right path? Well, I got 3 simple points today. The prudent person makes course corrections. Some of these course corrections are just small little tweaks. For example, each year on Labor Day, I hear that at the pier in Oceanside, California, swimmers go on a swim and they swim out the pier and beyond the buoy, and then they turn around and come back to shore. Most of the swimmers take 10 to 12 strokes and they lift their head out of the water to make sure they're headed towards the buoy or towards the right spot. And if necessary, they make slight course corrections. Otherwise, they'll waste a lot of time and a lot of energy. But in every race, there's always several swimmers who get way off course. And if we could watch these folks and how they're swimming, we'd think to ourselves, they're not very prudent. They're simple because they're not making any course corrections as they swim. On the other hand, sometimes we have to make massive course corrections. And sometimes part of choosing the right path is getting off the wrong path. It's the prudent person that says, this behavior, this habit, this relationship, this, you name it, whatever it is leading me somewhere that's going to eventually hurt me. So I'm going to get off this path and I'm going to get on a better one. That's wisdom. Okay, unlike the prudent person, my second point is the simple person keeps right on going. When a prudent person senses a relationship is moving in an unhealthy or a bad direction, they'll do something. They might break off that relationship. But the simple person says in the middle of that relationship, they say, I hope things will eventually fix themselves. When the prudent person sees trouble on a financial horizon, they'll do something. They'll change the way they spend or the way they save. But the simple person keeps right on spending. When a prudent person realizes that God is the most important person in the entire universe, and their relationship with him isn't growing, they're going to do something about it. But the simple person keeps doing whatever they've been doing and whatever they want to do that would take their time away from God. So, just so I'm clear, the second half of this proverb that we read twice says this, but the simple go on and suffer for it. Suffer for what? Well, it's for refusing to act on what they see and know that needing to change. They suffer because they saw that there was no connection between the choices of the day and the outcomes of tomorrow. They overlook the fact that every path has a destination. Do you remember the story of David and Bathsheba? I think most of us do who know our Bible. If we were to go back and to read this story and read it carefully, we'd see that there's all kinds of ways that God was tipping us off to the fact that David was being a simple person in this story. The story begins in 2 Samuel chapter 11. And it says, in the spring of the year, the time when kings go out to battle, David sent Joab and his servants with him and all of Israel, and they ravaged the Amorites and besieged Rabbah. But David remained in Jerusalem. Why didn't King David go out to battle like he was supposed to? Why didn't he make a course correction? That's a great question. Well, the story continues, and it says this. And it happened late one afternoon when David arose from his couch and was walking on the roof of the king's house, that he saw from the roof a woman bathing. And the woman was very beautiful. Why did David not look away when he saw Bathsheba? Why didn't he say, I notice it, but I'm not going to look? That's a great question. Why didn't he make a course correction? Well, the story went on, and David sent and inquired about the woman. And one said, is not this Bathsheba, the daughter of Eliam, the wife of Uriah the Hittite? Why did David go after more information, find out more about this woman that we know as Bathsheba? Why didn't he make some course correction during this process? If you and I were to take the time to go through the entire story, it is filled with opportunities for David to make a course correction at very many junctures, but he didn't. Well, this is how the scenario falls in our own lives. The simple person says, hey, I'm dealing with something that's probably going to be a problem, and I really ought to. And the prudent person says, well, are you going to do something about it? The simple person says, no, I'm just probably going to keep on going. Prudent person says, but don't you see, and then you fill in the blank, and the simple person says, yeah. Shouldn't you do something about that then? Well, yeah, I guess I should. You're right. I guess I should do something. Well, what are you going to do about it? Well, I don't know. For right now, I guess I'm just going to keep doing what I am doing. Really? Don't you think you ought to do something different? Yeah, I probably should stop, but I don't know what exactly to do. I'm not going to argue with you. Oh, so what are you going to do about this? And the simple person finally says, I guess I'm going to just keep doing what I've been doing. You see, the simple person thinks, I'm going to drive right towards the wall, but when I get there, I won't hit it. Excuse me? You're not going to hit it. Yeah, I'm going to keep going, and when I get there, it's all going to work out somehow. Something will happen, or I'll think of something when I get there. Really? You're going to really think of something? Oh, yes, we're going to think of something. But you don't think of something. That's what happens in the simple person's mind. The simple person just keeps on going in the same direction that they've been going. All of us should hate to be called simple when it comes to this definition. Whether you're 15 or 30 or 50 or even 70 years old, and you see that there could be a problem in your future because of the direction that you're headed on your path. If you're a prudent person, you'll make a course correction, or you'll get off of that path altogether. And if you don't, you're called a simple person, according to Solomon. Let me explain this. A parent notices that their 4-year-old son or daughter tends to talk back and lose their temper. As they grow a little bit older, they do the same thing to their teacher and even to their coaches. The parent thinks, when they grow up, this could be a problem. A concerned grandparent might say, I'm worried about this, son or daughter. Mom says, yeah, me too, but figuring out how to positively encourage and to teach my child how to submit and to take direction, that'll be too painful. That'll take too much work. So mom doesn't do anything. She hopes that by luck and by unanticipated circumstances, her little hothead is going to grow out of his or her temper tantrums and hissy fits. But that's not how it works out. The child grows up and they move from job to job. They move from relationship to relationship because they can't control their mouth or their temper. And so they keep getting worse and worse circumstances. A guy in his upper 20s knows that he's gaining a little weight. But hey, that's what happens when you're up in your upper 20s, right? Our metabolism slows down, but our appetite doesn't. A friend might say, when you're in your 40s, this could be a problem. And the simple person says, yeah, I know, but that's when I'm in my 40s. It'll be a problem. And at age 46, after their first heart attack, they decide to figure out how to get into an exercise program and start eating right. But by then, a lot of the damage has already been done. A couple might think, we really need to get on a budget. We need to figure out where all our money is going so that we can give to God and even have some left over to help other people. And by the way, when we retire, we're going to need some left over to help ourselves too, right? But then that new bling catches our eyes. And besides, budgeting is so mundane and yesterday. So they keep driving towards that wall, hoping that something miraculous will happen just before they hit. Well, so how do you and I choose the right path? That's the real question. So here's the key. My point 3. Prudent people do something different. Prudent people know that it's not okay. It's not what we see. It's what makes the difference. It's what we do that makes the difference. They make a course correction along their path, along their journey. And how do we make that course correction? Well, here's 4 simple tips. You do something. You take action. You make little adjustments along the way, or you step completely off one path and get on another one. It's almost always hard to do that, because when we're all creatures of habit and creatures of momentum. We naturally want to continue to do what we've always done. If we're used to overeating, then overeating feels natural to us. If we're used to losing our temper, then losing our temper feels natural to us. If we're used to skipping our Bible reading and our devotional time, well, then that's what we keep on doing. Momentum carries us in the same direction. So to change that direction means, my point two, you almost always have to give up something if you want to change. And it's usually something that you like. Here's a consequence of what I've been saying. When you see that you're headed for danger, it almost always requires some form of sacrifice. And which is why most people don't do anything. And this is where it gets kind of ironic. When prudent people act, they're often looked at by others as being foolish. They do things that others aren't willing to do for themselves. They keep swimming without ever looking where they're going. No, that's not what a prudent person does. We make course corrections so that we don't hit the wall or that the wall doesn't hit us. And when we behave prudently, point three is, we will usually suffer embarrassment. And here's why. Because almost everyone else won't take the steps necessary to fix their problem, and no one else is doing what is right so often around us. Remember our story of King David? I'm sure that most of his buddies weren't telling him to make a course correction along the way. They were likely encouraging David's action, or maybe even at least envying him. Which brings me to point number four. You will someday breathe a sigh of relief. You know what's kind of funny about Proverbs 27:12? It's the same story that your mom told you and my mom told me. It's the story of the three little pigs. Well, we all remember that story. The story goes like one little pig, he built his house out of straw. And the one pig built his house out of sticks. And when the big bad wolf came along and he huffed and he puffed and he blew their house down, they were simple. Solomon would call these two pigs simple pigs. But there was a third little pig. He was the prudent pig. He built his house out of bricks. Why? Because he saw the danger coming and he built a refuge. That's what prudent people do. Let's see if I can conclude this message. As we're in the middle of this COVID thing, many of us are experiencing challenges right now in our life. But one day, we're going to get past the challenges of this pandemic, only to face future struggles. We've experienced heartache and disappointments before. I know many of you have. I know I have. And we'll face them again in our future. And as Christians, we know that these things are true. God is good, he is faithful, and prudent people, we can make course corrections along the way on our path with God's wisdom. So the purpose of this message has been to help us avoid creating our own mistakes and our own struggles, and to make any necessary course adjustments in our life for God's glory and for our good. So let me just give us 5 areas that would be areas of life to monitor for course correction. They are spiritual, relational, moral, physical, and financial. I believe the order that I have them in is the right order. The most important person in the entire world is God. And the most important relationship that we can have is a relationship with him. The most important thing on earth is human relationships. No one will get to their deathbed wishing that they had more money. They might wish that they had a better body so they could have lived a little bit longer, or they might wish that they had lived a better moral life so people might think better of them. But almost everyone will wish that they had spent more time with their family, their friends, and their loved ones, and invested in the kingdom of God. And everyone, when they're about to leave this life, they want to make sure that things are right between them and God. That is my prayer today. Will you pray with me? Father, I thank you that You have described so clearly in your word the difference between a prudent person and a simple person. You have given us such clear instruction from Solomon in the book of Proverbs. And Father, I pray that as we have learned from this message today, we want to be prudent people. We do not want to fall into that category that Solomon calls people that are foolish, simple. We want to seek your wisdom. We want to seek your guidance. And the greatest guidance and wisdom comes from your word. So may we pour ourselves into it as your word pours into our lives to help us make those course corrections on the paths of life as we travel in this journey. Father, I pray that you will challenge us, that you will correct us, that you will encourage us to stay on the right path. And when we get off that path, even in the slightest way, that we can make the slightest course correction or the largest course correction so that we can follow you the way that would be pleasing to you, which would be best for us as well and for those around us. In Jesus' name, amen. Well, I've included some so what questions in the sermon notes for you to apply this message and maybe to help it be a little more meaningful to you so that it will not just be a message but something that you can put into practice. After you've taken some time to answer those so what questions, why not share with those that you're with some of the course corrections that you might want to be making at this time. Maybe you have some of your own questions or comments that you'd like to share with me. I would love to see those questions and comments. Maybe you would like to know about how to have a personal relationship with Jesus Christ, how to make the ultimate course correction so that you too can get on that path so that you can end up in heaven with the rest of us who are children of God. Please send any of those questions or any of those comments to me at timgecelgin@gmail.com. Please come back next week when we once again open the book of Proverbs, find out more wisdom from Solomon, how we can apply those to our path, our paths of life, how we can stay on the right path, make sure we stay off the wrong path, and make those course corrections as necessary to do both. God bless you. Hope to see you again next week.